Hey, welcome to our work session tonight. We're still getting everybody settled here, so beg your patience as we get started, getting everybody around the table. Is Mike coming? Hi, John.
Clingham was not back there.
Where's Cronin at? He's supposed to be here.
He was here as well. So we're live right now. Hi, John. The work session tonight is on Bill 4507. How are you, sir?
Very good.
Hello, John. How you doing?
Waiting for Mr. Clingham or Mr. Cronin to get us started. Do you want to lead us off, talk a
I
little bit about?
can, yeah. Is Mr. Cronin in here? Because he's has a heavy hand in this as well. Where's Joe? Where'd he go? Well, get started.
Yeah, we're already started, so
Okay, what, as you guys all know, what this came about, there up north, there was a gentleman who wanted to have weddings at his, he was already doing weddings, I suppose, and he had a pumpkin patch and some other stuff up in the northern part of the county, and Mr. Cronin was trying to, I wish he was here so I don't get the story wrong, but he wanted to accommodate him, and he wrote an ordinance that would, huh?
He's coming now.
Okay. I'll just wait so I don't have to repeat myself. We're used to it. Oh, he's funny. Come on, Joe, I'm waiting on you.
Oh, come on now.
Okay, so we're getting started with the meeting, okay?
Okay, go.
And I was just saying that the way this came about is Mr. Cronin had a gentleman up north that was doing weddings, and apparently the county, said you can't have weddings without being zoned properly, and Mr. Cronin was trying to accommodate him. We wrote an ordinance that allowed weddings on a pumpkin patch, or whatever this gentleman has up there, and after it went through, we had 3 applications come through in the wine area that was to allow weddings, and I'm very concerned about it. I wanted to make some amendments to the ordinance. The administration, Jennifer, did some cleaning up of it. It was pretty vague, and we did clean it up some. However, in my opinion, what this does is it discounts the weddings because, discounts the wineries, because the wineries spend a lot of time and energy in putting vineyards out, making wine, doing what they do to make the area a wine district. And so if in our district, in District 2, if we just allow someone to have 8 acres and build a building and start having weddings, it just devalues and discounts the whole wine district. And I'm very opposed to this. So at the last meeting, we had talked about amending it to a 28. I really wanted, if we're going to do it at all, I'd want it to be on a 40-acre parcel. Mr. Cronin's not good with that, but you can talk about it, whatever your thoughts are. And then I wanted to amend it to at least 20 acres and then be within 2,000 feet of a winery. I talked to Mike about that, our community development director.
But not within 2,000 feet.
Yeah, well, it has to be without, and there may be some hangups with that, I'm not sure, but those are some of the, in order to, he has no wineries in his district, we have 10 wineries in our district, and so if we wrote some language in it in that fashion, it would make it pretty slim to have these wedding venues in District 2. But the council, I don't know whether on board, I tried to do the amendment last meeting and it did not get support. So we decided to have a work session to talk about it and get some perspective from the other council members and perhaps some of the wineries and see what their thoughts are. And that's where we are on this thing.
Mr. Cronin, do you want to talk about?
Yes, I would think the county, I've been living here my whole life, the county's not homogeneous, okay? We're not the same. What works in my district works in Terry's district. We both got wedding venues recently approved in smaller areas, may not work in your district. So I would say that if you want to tie it in, what's the name of the agricultural district you have down there? The viviculture or something like that?
But that's only, that doesn't come to Defiance.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I mean, if you want to tie it into wineries, or you want to make it specific for District 2, I don't have a problem with that at all. That's what you folks want down there, okay? But just so you know, there might be somebody that wants to have wedding venue on the banks of the Mississippi on a 5-acre parcel in Mr. Klingham's district. Or maybe wants to have it out in the middle of cornfields up north above St. Paul or something, where there's not opposition or a problem. I hate to shut the door on those folks. That's the problem I've got with making it 20 acres or whatever. I think what you need to do is carefully craft the verbiage in this so it applies to your district and the vineyards in particularly, and not the rest of the county. I think that can be done.
Anybody else have any other thoughts on this right now that you want to share?
Well, my first thought is that, we have to be careful in that, we all support free enterprise. We all support the idea of people wanting to start a business. And I think we saw that with the McClay Road mansion. We saw that. And, the size, again, 20 acres, 10 acres, I'm not sure that one size fits all.
Right.
And I think we have to be careful in that we don't come across as being, quote, anti-business here. Somebody wants to start a new business, we're not in the business here to picking winners and losers here. If they think that they can make it, with a venue, and they meet all the other building requirements that obviously we have a lot of other things. They have to meet the various codes and so on. I'm not too sure acreage is as important as those other things.
Anyone else have any thoughts on that?
With the existing conditional use permit process, okay? You as a council member can do the same thing I did with that recent wedding venue in my district, and you can try to tailor the conditional use permits to appease the majority of the neighbors, if not all of them, or the majority of them. So I mean, you still got that possibility, and like the 3 recent ones in your district, I think we did a good job on them as a council in deciding where it made sense and where it didn't make sense.
Right.
And where it did make sense, put conditions on them so they don't adversely affect their neighbors. So there's not to me, I don't see how there's anything broken. If 50 people apply for wedding venues in your district next month, that doesn't mean 50 are going to get approved. We might look at 50 and turn down 49 and say one of them makes sense, okay? And that's the beauty of a conditional use permit, okay? That's my feeling, at least.
Same thing that we did with McClay Mansion. We put a wedding venue in right adjacent to residential neighborhoods. I kind of liken that to, it's similar to putting it next to agricultural open space also. Maybe it is, we looked at it, we made sure that it didn't adversely affect them to any great extent. And then we made our decision based on the best, our best, best guess or best thoughts that we had. I think we do the same thing with those that are in the agricultural district.
The problem, I think, with that, though, and I understand what you're saying, is that most of them are going to be coming to the wine district because of what the wineries effort that they put in. And so there's several reasons. Let me give me some other ideas. You got Highway 94, you got rural routes, and by each, if you add the more venues you add, the more traffic. So we not only do we want to be business friendly, but we also want to be friendly to the people who live out there. So you don't want to put all this traffic out there on these winding roads. That's one. Number two, the planning and zoning and community development, with some of the ordinances that they have, I believe it, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, but doesn't it make it easier when you get a CUP in front of you that you have the more parameters around it, so you don't, doesn't that make it easier to handle? Like if we had, like if
Would you, Robert, like to come up and weigh in on this?
Like if we had some kind of parameters, and when we talked about, if you guys are saying that the land mass doesn't make sense, the 20 acre, we bounce that back and forth. And then we talked about the distance from wineries. Let's say that if it's illegal, it's a zone winery, and you guys don't have wineries, so then why wouldn't we write that into the language and say that whatever that number is, it's you can't be with it, and it's for traffic reasons and for infrastructure reasons. It's not about competition. It's about getting too many people out there on the road. So let's say that we say it's got to be 20. It can't be 25 feet from 2,500 feet from a winery or something like that, to eliminate saturating the wine district with these wedding venues. That's what I'm saying, because
Does it make it easier, to his first question? Does it
Well,
make it easier on that?
Sure, I mean, if every single type of condition is listed out for us before we're reviewing it, absolutely, it's easy. I don't know if you can capture every condition. I mean, that's the only concern. Obviously, if there's some that jump out to you as prevalent concerns or prevalent issues you need to address up front, then that's acceptable to have it listed out that way. The thing I would say is you're looking at safety, obviously, but the character of the district. That's, to me, is what the zoning is all about. Zoning is putting uses in place that are in character with the surrounding district, the surrounding area. So if you feel that use is not in character with the district, then you put limitations on it or don't allow it at all.
So question for you, to Mr. Cronin's point of we're not the same in any of our 7 districts. They're very different. So to his point on conditional use permits as they come up, we can treat District 2 differently than we treat the other 6 districts if we feel that it needs to have different restrictions on it, can we not? I mean, if that conditional use permit comes up and we say, well, we want to keep it to safeguard of what you're talking about because of the roads, because of everything else that's there, that you have unique in your district that is not in the rest of it, we can write that into the conditional use permit, can't we?
No, I think you got to write it into this ordinance.
Well, no, you can put conditions in place on each specific CUP that are specific to that area, to that location, to that site. So if that's something you want to do each time, you can do that.
I think that's where your main rub is coming right now. Am I getting anything different from anybody, John?
Well, we really have something special in that district with the wineries.
Right.
And to just flood them with other venues, I think will really hurt the industry.
Well, I don't think that's a question right now. I think the question is, do you build the ordinance based on District 2 and not take into consideration, do you put those same restrictions on the other 6 districts that you put on District 2?
No, I would be fine with just putting it on District 2.
See, that's where I think...
I'd be fine if we're trying to find something that would protect what we have down there.
We can't write an ordinance, though. We tried that. We said south of 70, it's got to be this way. We looked at that. We can't do that. But if we put in the ordinance, because you guys have no wineries, you cannot have one of these facilities within 3,000 feet of a winery or something like that. And then it's blanket across the county. And you guys it wouldn't affect your district, but that would say, okay, we're not having these commercial box wedding venues in the wine district. And not only that, Keith, how does that comply to the master plan if we're doing commercial buildings? There's no agriculture. Wineries have agriculture. That's how they fit into the master plan zoning. So that's another thing.
Well, the state of Missouri case law does not treat a master plan as being mandatory. Master plans are plans. The emphasis is on the notion that it's a presentation of the concept of what the government in question would like to see or envision over a span of time. In our case, it presently goes to 2025, I think. So I don't think the master plan may be as meaningful to your discussion as you think it might be.
Let's, Mr. Cronin.
I was just going to mention that we have a gentleman who decided that he wanted to take the county councilor's job at his stage of life because he wanted to get involved in land use and public policy. And Mr. Hazelwood, I know you've got some ideas. You know what we're trying to accomplish, protecting the wineries but not shut down businesses in other parts of the county. Surely you can come up with something.
The conditional use permit idea goes a long way toward doing that, and I think that's what Mike Hurlbert's trying to emphasize is if there were sufficient conditions put into the conditional use permit that we're talking about here with the new, under either the old language or the new language, it's all in the conditional use section of 405.080. So if you put enough of those conditions in place, you're probably gonna start weeding out. I don't know, someone of you mentioned 50 applications, and you may want to only approve one of them. That's a way to start weeding them out, is to set the conditions to the point where it becomes problematic.
So Keith, to Mr. Braslett's point, does that need to be written into the ordinance, or can we handle those as every time that conditional use permit comes up?
The latter.
Okay.
But see, but every time you get all these applicants, we had 3 come down for what District 2. Every time you get an applicant, you got to put it forward to the council. Then these folks are going to have to drive up here every time from Augusta to oppose it. And I think that's putting a burden on them. Why can't we write in the ordinance, whatever that number is? I don't know, if it's 3,000 feet, you can't have one of these within 3,000 feet of a winery. I mean, that's legal. Why would you guys object to that?
Mr. Hammond?
I was going to say, I don't have any objection to it, Joe. If that's what your constituents want down there, I don't have a problem supporting that. And it's a pretty simple fix.
That's what some of the constituents want, not all of them. Not that guy that's within 3,000 feet of another one. And I guess my point is, if they're right next door to each other, serviced by the same road, yes, we could say and be accurate that we don't want to, have too much traffic congestion. That's not the way that our roads are necessarily laid out, though. I mean, if one backs up to another one and is serviced by a different road, how do we go back
Well, it's
in
not-
and justify that,
it's not just-
that it needs to be 3,000 feet away from the first?
Mike, it's not just a road thing, it's also having the value of a wine district. If we're gonna have a bunch of box wedding venues all over the place, you discount the winery, the wine area. That's what makes it so important. The vineyards, the making of the wine, that's why people come there.
Can I suggest to you that I don't think anyone around this table disagrees with you to that point. What we're disagreeing with, I think, is how do we best protect it without hurting the other 6 districts? I don't disagree with you on protecting the integrity of the wine district. You heard Dave just said he doesn't have a problem with it. You heard John just say the same thing. We don't disagree with you in protecting the integrity of the wine district. We agree. Our debate is, how do we do that without taking those same restrictions that are unique to District 2, that are not shared by the other 6 districts, and be fair to the other 6 districts? That's where we run into. Your 20 acres? No, I'm opposed to your 20 acres. I'm completely opposed to that. I don't think that makes sense for the other 6 districts.
Right.
For yours, maybe perfect. And if we want to write that into a conditional use that comes before us, great. And if we get 50 and we vote 49 of them down, great. That's the process. But I don't want to hurt, personally, I don't want to hurt the other 6 districts just because that's how you want it in District 2. I'm all about fighting to protect District 2's integrity. I think the wine district is a jewel of our county, it's a jewel of our region, and should be protected at all costs.
And we can do that. My point is, we don't want to say, well, we don't want another one on McClay Road. That project, we all agreed, it was a good project, it needs to go forward.
Right.
It's not on 20 acres of ground.
No, well, I'm not, I could go, I'm not saying the 20 acres was one idea, but if you guys all, from what I understand, you're good with a distance, if Mike can kind of pick a distance that makes it, now, this doesn't mean there could be a winery next to a winery, because they're actually an agricultural use, they're making wine, and we're not trying to eliminate them, we're saying that these weddings in a box, that they gotta be certain distance from wineries, and so it sounds that you guys would agree with that, because it would have no effect on your district.
I don't have a problem, it doesn't affect my district. But I want to tell you one other thing. I think what we're discussing is a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I asked him straight up, do we have any other applications in your area for wedding venues in the pending? We got none. So we had 3 at one time, and I had 1 in my district, okay? We worked through those, and I think we handled them very well. I don't think we've got a big problem with the existing rules we have. Now, if you want to write something specific for your district, I got no issue with it. I think Mike hit the nail on the head, okay? But as far as affecting my district, to protect the vineyards in your district, I got a problem with that, because that's not fair to 3 folks in my district.
Can I offer
Yep.
something else? If you do a distance, you may want to realize that the weddings, the existing wineries now will be allowed to continue to do weddings, But at some point, if they need to amend their ordinance or amend their site plan or something, we would ask that they amend their CUP to be current. So they would be adding that use, that category, structure, building structure or open space for a wedding or wedding reception as part of their new CUP. So if there's a distance requirement on there, that may impact if there's any within that distance existing wedding wineries. So
But
they
we've
would not be able
already-
to have a wedding
We've already agreed, though, to grandfather all the weddings, or the
until
wineries.
such time as they come in to do any
If they do an
enlargement,
expansion, they
alteration,
would not,
expansion.
they would lose their grandfather at that point.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we run out of time, Joe said there's some winery people here. I'd like to hear from them.
Okay. Tony, do you want to start?
Yes.
You already had your hand up, so.
Thank you.
You look like you're ready to go.
I was, and so I'm going to speak as a winery owner. I'm also going to speak as a resident of St. Charles County.
Yes, sir.
So, as a winery owner, the wineries have the privilege to operate in St. Charles County because we have a connection with agriculture. I was up this morning at 4:30, and we harvested grapes all day long today, and that's why there isn't more wineries here today, because this is the peak harvest time, okay? Otherwise, I'm sure there'd be a lot more people out here. We're a seasonal business. We're struggling to exist, okay? We only have 6 months of time to get revenue to make our business exist. And a lot of us exist just by the fact that we can get 1 or 2, 3, 4 weddings a year, you know. If that's taken away from us, it's going to cause us a struggle. And I think all the other points you've already discussed about wineries in unincorporated St. Charles County. But I think the most important part is I'm a resident in St. Charles County. The reason I moved to southwest St. Charles County is because I wanted peace and quiet. I wanted a lifestyle where I wasn't inhibited by traffic. It was quiet, it was peaceful. I could go and do whatever I wanted to do. I could go out into my land and I could hunt. And when you have a wedding venue that could have potentially 350 people, 100 to 350 people, 150 a year for just one
Right.
business, now 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 businesses, our lifestyle is going to be changed.
Sure.
We're not going to be able to enjoy that. And I've seen this happen in Oregon. I've seen it happen in California, where people are opening up these types of businesses, not just wedding venues, but dinner venues and all that sort of thing. And people are driving on small roads. The infrastructure isn't developed for that. And they're aggravating their neighbors, you know. I'd like to be able to sit on my front porch in the evening and enjoy the quiet. I'd like to enjoy the evening. I'd like to watch the sunset, I'd like to watch the stars. And I don't want to be hearing, you know, boom, 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 and flashing lights. So as a resident, those are my feelings.
Okay. Do you have another?
Mr. Balducci, you want to?
Well, I'm going to repeat some of the things Tony said. You know, California, pretty much everything they make out there, they can sell all over the country. They're sold out every year. In Missouri, it's so much on-premise. On-premise is so important. And it's really been hard to grow because it seems like every time you think you're going to start growing, another place opens up. And that's free enterprise. Nothing wrong with free enterprise, but there's also the word survival. And more wineries are trying to get more off-premise sales, but that requires huge investment in more buildings, more manpower, more equipment. It's just a huge investment. Even to start, the land, the planting, the vineyard people, the winemaker, maybe a chef. It's just a huge investment. So we all have huge investments and huge investment in time. Most of us work 7 days a week. You know, I've had 3 days off last year. I'm not whining because that's my choice, but
Pardon the pun.
I like what I do. But my point is, I just think it's very important that the fact that we have tried to develop this area into a unique area, and the fact that it is agriculture, that it would be nice to have a little bit of protection to preserve it, and to keep it. And one last point. I've talked to many wineries. I've talked to one down in Defiance. It was a couple years ago. I was talking to Chris at Sugar Creek, and he says, you know, we haven't grown in years. And he says, I'm getting really frustrated. He says, that's why I'm going to go into the distilling business. He says, I just can't show any growth. And he works his tail off, you know. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind, that we're trying, but it's not easy. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else you want to hear from?
John? I just think, you know, this is a dilemma, but I think we need to find a solution to it, because I think this is really important to us because of the tourism that comes into our county,
Right.
come to our wine district. We need to find a way to solve this and preserve what we have. So whatever it takes, I'm willing to go that way.
But go ahead, Terry.
Well, I really think the way to go is not on acreage, but on distance. Okay. And if you go distance from wineries, I don't have any wineries in my district. Okay. So
Me either.
it wouldn't apply to my district. Would it apply to yours? So I think that we need to go to, you know, I think that's the idea, but not acreage.
No, I'm good with that. We're just throwing out ideas, you know.
Is that a proper legal, can we do that legally?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Now, just to throw a curve at you, just bear in mind by doing so, we're protecting one specific industry. You mentioned distilleries. We got better corn in my district than we got in yours. So let's say we got a bunch of corn distilleries going up in my area, okay? Does that mean we're going to limit wedding venues at distilleries? Are we going to limit wedding venues at any other type of business? So, I mean, I understand your concern. I understand these folks' concerned, but be careful what you ask for here, because you're setting a precedent. We're doing things to inhibit future growth and stifle competition on one specific industry. And if you're good with that for your district, that's your decision
Keep
to
in mind,
make.
we're not stopping winery growth. You can still put a winery within any distance to a winery. You just can't put a wedding in a
Yeah, but we
box.
just heard some guys saying that they were struggling to make it, okay, with just growing grapes and making wine. But they count on these wedding events to help subsidize the bottom line. And as a businessman, I get that 100%. And I also get the stuff about, well, I don't really want to hear the other wedding menus, but you know what? I'm sure the people that lived there before the wineries think the same way about those existing wineries that are there. So, I mean, there's two sides to all this. But put it this way, it's your decision to make the best decision for your constituents in your district. And as such, I will support what you do as long as it doesn't affect my district, okay?
So it sounds like.
I'll
Go
talk
ahead.
to Mike and have him come up with a reasonable number in feet, if it's whatever that is. If it's just, what we talked before, 2,000, 2,500 feet, whatever makes it, you know,
I'd like to.
or whatever the number is, 5,000. I don't know what the number is.
We should look at existing wineries so that we don't hurt them in the future.
No.
Just those 3 lines.
Yeah.
So that's something. that-
Well, you guys heard, we just said acreage and distance. It was supposed to be 48. We have an 18 district that's 40, but they're not going to agree to that. That's what I just said. They're not going to, I don't have the votes.
I think the thing that we're trying to express to you is, just because that's the way the ordinance is written, does not mean that's the way the conditional use permit is done. Every conditional use permit is an individual process, and they do not have to be treated the same. So the thing we're trying to tell Mr. Brazel, we understand, and we hope you guys hear us. Everybody here agrees that the wine district is a treasure for St. Charles County, and we want to protect you. We don't want to make it harder for you, and I don't want you whining unless you're crushing and making wines, because we like your wines. But we also don't want to put those type of restrictions in areas that don't have anything to do with you. And if we put it in the ordinance, it's countywide, right? So that's why the acreage really becomes a rub, because you're...
You can't just build something for our district.
We can on that conditional use permit that comes in. So if a conditional use permit comes in for your area, yes, ma'am, it's case by case on a conditional use. But if you put it in the ordinance, that's countywide and we're all stuck with it and we can't do anything about it. So that's why I hope you understand, we hear you. We're not trying to do anything to hurt you, because it hurts us if we hurt you, and we don't want that to happen. However, we need to make sure that we're not hurting the rest of us. Tony, then you, then we got to wrap up.
Yeah, sorry. You know, I guess I have a problem with the conditional use part of it, and
That's a different argument, Tony,
I know
that
it's a
that we're
different
not here for
argument.
today.
I know, but, you know, Joe's talking about distance from wineries and stuff like that, and acreage. And I don't think these things, it doesn't matter if it's 10 acres, 50 acres, 100 acres, 5,000 acres. You know, I don't think it belongs in a rural area. But, and just let me say this.
Okay.
Conditional use, to me, is like spot zoning. Because some of them, you know, you can come in one day and it can be approved. You can come in 2 days later and it's thrown out. You know, I mean, it's.
Tony, these guys are used to me asking the devil's advocate question, so let me phrase it in that. You don't want, you know, to use Joe's terms, a wedding venue in a box, but it's okay for wineries to do exactly the same activities and affect their neighbors the same way as a winery in a box. So explain to me again what the difference is. You know, if I had bought 10 acres of ground and I had my little pond out there and was raising apples or doing my thing, I might not want you, quite frankly, to have wedding venues going on at your winery.
And
So what's the difference?
I understand that. The wineries have a tie to agriculture. You know,
Okay.
we're just like the pig farmers, the row crop farmers, everybody else. We have a tie to agriculture, and that's how we make our living, you know. It's, you know, I mean, it's like one of my neighbors, I complained about his dump truck bumping along the road at 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, and he says, "What's your problem?" I said, "I don't like the sound of it at 4 o'clock in the morning." He says, "That's the sound of money." You know, and so I said, okay. But, we have, I guess, some tie into agriculture, some way to legitimize what we're doing there.
Sure, wineries certainly do. What I'm trying to get to is, where does wedding venue have a tie to agriculture?
Right. Yeah, we don't do that many weddings, to be honest with you. You know, I
I
mean,
know, but there are other wineries that do.
there's some of them that are, but I'll bet you there isn't any that do more than 20 of them a year, you know.
The other thing is, though, the wineries is what built the district. It's not if you had all these wedding venues without the wineries, there would be no tourism district. And that's the difference.
I need to get her point, and then we need to wrap up, because we've got a whole other meeting to run. You can do it real quick.
You know what, I think one of the parts of this that we're missing is that District 2 is an agricultural area.
Right.
Not a commercial area.
Right.
Which is probably how most of the other districts are laid out. They have
Not one in,
zoning areas.
not 1 in 6. They're completely,
Well, I've got the city
well, you've got the city, but the
But then I've
majority
got-
of your land mass is
agriculture.
completely agriculture.
I think one of the things that we don't want to see, it's not just about the wedding in a box. It's the thought that it's not a commercial area.
Right.
So you don't just want businesses that have nothing to do with agricultural popping up out there. We are out there not just because we're doing weddings or we've got tasting rooms, but we're agricultural.
Right.
That's the reason we got into it. We've all got vineyards and we're maintaining it. If you just open it up to whoever, wedding in a box, whatever it is, they're strictly commercial. They're not doing anything agricultural. And I think that's the key to this is that we've got an area that's agricultural, and you want to leave it that way. And
Okay.
because I think it benefits it's a benefit for everybody. It's a benefit for St. Charles County. It's a benefit for the region. And I think that's part of the.
So you hear that, Joe? No more building in Defiance. You're done right now. No more building. You heard it from her. Well, I appreciate you all coming. We need to break up this, and 5 minutes we'll start our meeting. If anybody is going to speak tonight during public comments, I would ask that you fill out a public comment card that's right here. Turn that in. Carol will call our speakers up and we'll do it. We'll start our meeting in about 5 minutes.